And my younger son said to me, "Will you do something for me, Mom?" And I said, "Yes, anything." And he said, "Don't die."
Welcome to Rising to Resilience, the podcast where we explore real stories of authentic struggle, strength, and ultimately hope and transformation. I'm Kym Hinchey, and I am convinced that resilience isn't just about bouncing back and white-knuckling it. It's about who we become in the process of going through really hard things. Each week, we'll be exploring conversations with people who have faced devastatingly hard heartbreak, loss, unexpected challenges. Yet, even through that pain, they've discovered new strength, they've found purpose, and somehow even joy on the other side. If you are in the middle of a storm right now, or if you're just looking for hope and encouragement for the journey, this is a really good place. Here, my hope is that you'll find perspective and resources and practical tools, but also give you something to cling to, because hope is what it's all about. I'm glad you're here. Let's get started. I am excited to welcome Kym Hinchey into our community today. Kym, and if you would just give us a moment to get to know you and introduce yourself. For people who are meeting you now, what would you like them to know about you?
Well, thank you, Sharon. I'm glad to be here. I am Kym Hinchey, and I am the owner of Adrian Grief Support. I provide grief coaching and education for people who have experienced loss in their life. And I am also an author. My book, Then and Now, The Evolution of Grief, just came out last month. So that was kind of a big deal. And let me say this was not the job that I wanted. I never planned to be a grief educator and a coach. When I was a little girl, I would imagine myself as maybe being a zookeeper or a librarian, because those were the things that were biggest in my life, animals and books. This was definitely not on the list. So I came into this work because grief became the biggest part of my life. During the pandemic, my son, Adrian, lost his life to an accidental overdose after years of battling addiction. And then 3 months later, my husband, John, died. And the coroner said that he had a massive heart attack, but I knew that he died of heartbreak. And I kind of wished I could too. That's just the truth. That's me being authentic. And so, and then a year after that, my dog died really tragically and suddenly. And a lot of people would say, "Oh my gosh, that was just a dog." And no, he was literally one of the reasons I was still getting up in the morning.
Ugh.
So, yeah. So I became much more familiar with grief than I think anybody wants to. I mean, okay, nobody wants to become familiar with grief, but I became very familiar with grief, and I learned that it was not anything like we expect it to be and nothing like we're led to believe it will be. So I was like, how come nobody's talking about the truth about grief? The truth. It's all kind of wrapped up with a shiny bow, and nobody really talks about what it's really like, and you don't know until you're in it. And so I started talking about this is normal. What you're feeling is normal. And it resonated with a lot of people. And
Yeah,
so that's it in a
man.
nutshell.
Yeah, that's a hard nut to crack.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. It's a hard nut to consume. I mean, yeah.
Right. Yeah, you said, and it struck me with just the rawness of it. Like no one, little girl, dreams of being a grief counselor. No one's, nobody would ever hope for the knowledge that you have. Before Adrian died, what was life like?
Life was, well, to be really, again, authentic, Adrian's addiction colored every area of our lives, our family's life. It was a constant film that was replaying over and over again. He was either in sobriety and everything was great and everyone was hopeful and we were thinking about the future and how things were going to get better. And those were really the best times. And then there would come the relapse. And that was when everybody was kind of going into survival mode. And we lived that way for a very long time, very long time. Adrian was diagnosed with Lyme disease when he was a teenager, and he was given pain medication, narcotics for that. And that turned into a heroin addiction. And so by the time he was 19, he was fully in addiction, heroin addiction, and had begun the cycle that we would live until he died. However, before he died, he was living with his father and I, and he was doing really well. He had been clean for 6 years. He was going to school. He was starting his own business. We saw it, right? We saw the finish line. It's like, there it is. He's finally going to get the future that I have always dreamed of him having.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened and the
Oh.
lockdowns happened. And it was too much for him. It was too much for him, and he relapsed during that, and he died. So, life was all about his addiction, but we also had to keep living, right?
Mhm.
We had to carry on, and I think if any of your listeners have dealt with anybody who has addiction, they're gonna relate to that. You still
Yeah.
have to get up, and you have to go to work, and you have to have a normal life, and I did all of those things. I was really, really good at juggling. I was really good at pushing through and if I just get through this, then. If I just get through this, then. So
Mhm.
that was really what it was like. And our whole family did that.
What what was the thing that you thought grief was supposed to be like that you now know is
That I could talk about this for a really long time. So stop me if
go
I
for
get
it?
carried away. Stop me. This
Yeah.
is kind of my soapbox.
Mhm.
But I really mean it genuinely because there's so many people in grief who are thinking, "What is wrong with me?" And I just want them to know so much, nothing is wrong with you, nothing. Before I thought grief was a lot of crying and sadness and missing somebody, and it is all of those things. That is true. But I kind of thought that was it. I thought if you push through the sadness, then you're pretty much on track to be going back to normal. And that was not true. I thought that there would be some general timeline to it because the 5 stages of grief, right? That's what we're told. And not exact, but I thought, in general, time would kind of go forward and it would move me forward with it. And that was not true at all. I discovered that grief time is an entirely different thing.
Hmm.
It does not move like the rest of the world does. Grief time is very different. And so it can make days feel like weeks, and weeks feel like months, and a year feel like no time has passed at all. So it's just this crazy feeling of being on an entirely different timeline than everybody else. And this is just one of the truths of grief, but nobody talks about it. It's just
Hmm.
you grief continues to show up long, long after the world thinks that you should be better. So that was the first thing that I realized was that this is taking way longer than I thought it would.
When did you first have that thought? Was it, like, at the first anniversaries, or was it, like, you're like, "Why am I not moving on?" Is that
Yeah,
when it
yeah,
you had that moment? Okay.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first anniversary is when everybody kind of thinks, okay, the worst is
Yeah.
over and now we can move on and get on with life. But
Yeah.
actually, the first year is really just numbness and shock. It's not even real grief yet. The first year, I barely remember the first year. I mean, there's like a couple of things that stand out to me,
Yeah.
moments during the first year, but other than that, it's just a long blur. And then there was the faniversary. That's what I call it, the faniversary, because it's takes
Why?
the word death from Greek at Thanos, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's the faniversary because it's not an angel versary. That's what some people call it. Because my son would laugh hysterically if I said that
You're
he
like,
was an
"Ah."
angel. Yes, and, it's not like a anniversary, like, anniversary implies something happy, right? So, anniversary is what I landed on. Yeah, and so, yeah, you come to that, and then everybody else is like the rest of the world moves on, and you're going, "I'm still back there. I'm still back there." And so you learn really quickly how to fake the hell out of every single day, and that's just a
Wow.
fact. Every griever does it. Every griever does it. Yeah.
And when you say fake the hell out of it, you mean, like, pretend
Yes.
to act normal?
Yeah. That's exactly what I mean, and so I call it the pretend okay shield, and you just
Hmm.
put it on because it's also for your own protection,
Mm.
because people are insensitive, not meaning to be. They really don't mean to be, but they say things without thinking about it or without realizing how it lands, and so they can hurt you even without intending to. So we learn to put this shield up, right, and pretend to be okay. Because if somebody asks you, "How are you doing?" and you're thinking, "Well, my son's dead. Well, my husband's dead. Well, my dog died last week." And you know how how they're gonna react to that. They're gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, okay, I'm sorry I asked."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself hovering in that tension between, like, I either lie to you and say, "Oh, I'm good,"
Yep.
or you tell them too much,
Yes.
where it's like, "Bleh," and then you, like, regret that for, like, the next week, or like, "What were you doing?" Like, is that
Exactly. And so then you start thinking, "This is too much for people. They can't handle my
Mhm.
grief. It's too much. I can see it. I can see by the way they react, it's too much." So then you start hiding it, and that's when you learn to fake it, and you just say, "I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm okay. I'm fine." And you're not. You're nothing close to fine or okay, but you learn to just lie, and so I saw this. I saw it in myself first, and then I saw it over and over and over again in the grieving world, and I was like, "This sucks." We should be able to tell the truth about grief. We should be able to say, "This is the most horrible thing I've ever been through, and I'm recovering, but it's slow and it's hard." And we should have the vocabulary to say the words so that other people don't recoil in fear and like, "Oh my gosh." And we should also kind of be trying to educate others. It really is awful, but grievers have to be the teachers of grief.
Yes, right. I was just actually thinking that as you were saying that, like, it's almost like we need the receiver to learn how to what to say when somebody says something that makes them uncomfortable, as opposed to us having to, like, couch our words to not make them uncomfortable,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, what would you want to be able to tell somebody when you're in that season, and what were you hoping that you could have heard them say back?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can answer that and probably on behalf of most grievers.
Mhm.
What I wanted to say was, I miss them so much. I think about them all the time. And Sharon, that's still true today. It does not hold the same pain and agony that it did in the early years, but they are still in my mind constantly all day long. So that's the truth that we discover. If anything, it's really weird, but you start to think about them more than you did when they were
Hmm.
alive. And that doesn't really go away. So you've got this constantly, you're always thinking about your person, and then everyone else stops talking about them. I don't know if I told you this, but that's why I named my business Adrian Grief Support, because everyone
Wow.
stopped saying Adrian's name and I couldn't handle it. I was like, I need people to say his name. I need to see his name. I need it to be part of my life. So I named my business Adrian Grief Support so
Wow.
that
Oh my gosh.
so I'd see it and so that he'd
Yeah.
kind of be his name would stand for something.
What were you hoping if you said that to somebody, like, "I miss them every day"? What did you want or hope that somebody could have said, or did anybody ever meet you in that place well?
Not at first. And again, I do not think this was intentional. I really don't. I think that people don't know what to say. They say that. I don't know what to say. And they mean it.
Mhm,
They don't know what to say.
mhm.
But what I wish they would have said is tell me about them.
Mm.
Tell me about them. Because I have learned that one of the most important parts of grief is talking about our loved ones, telling their stories again and again, as many times as we can. And in that way, we stop living in the day that they died. Their death stops being the biggest thing about them because it shouldn't be.
Right.
It shouldn't be. I had this moment where I realized I was focusing on Adrian's death. I was
Mm,
just narrow vision, totally focused in on the day he died and how I could have changed it and how it could have been prevented and how it happened and on and on and on. And I realized I'm not thinking about his life at all.
mm,
That horrible shadow had blocked out every beautiful sunshine moment of his life. And it was a sunshine life. He was so much more than his addiction, and he was so much more than his death. That was one
yeah.
day. It was the
It's
last
like
day, but it wasn't the most important day.
it's like I thought the image that came to my mind was like a sentence. And if you focus just on the period at the end of the sentence, you miss the whole meaning
Yes.
of what was there, what was purposeful, what was
Yeah,
intended.
I love that. In
Hmm.
fact, I might steal
Yeah.
it because
Go
that's
for it.
great.
Well, that's the image that your words were creating, like, you're
Yeah.
just focusing on the dot that ended it as opposed to the whole purpose of
Yeah.
what was being communicated.
So we really do. We need to talk about them.
Was it a different kind of grief? Did you see differences in terms of 2 such important losses, a child and a partner?
Yeah, very, very, very different losses. And my mentor, David Kessler, was the one who told me you have to grieve them separately. You can't grieve them together because a lot of people that have multiple losses or losses really close together, you think, okay, I'm going to go through a season of grief and then I'm going to be done. But you have
Hmm,
to grieve each individual person. You have to grieve each relationship. It can't be
hmm.
just put together. It's not a two for one.
So, so forgive me, but I don't quite understand how that would work, like, when you say I grieve them separately, I don't know how to what that means.
So, one of the truths that I learned about grief that we don't understand when we're in it is
Yeah.
that that is grieving, thinking about them,
Hmm,
remembering them, crying over them, telling their stories over and over and over. And so then people think, I'm stuck. I'm
hmm,
stuck. I just keep going back to the same thing. I keep doing the same thing. I know I'm a broken record. I
hmm.
just keep saying the same thing. That is grieving. That is the act of grieving.
That's so important for me to hear, and I have to confess, and my mom is gonna hear this, but I lost my dad 2.5 years ago, and I watched my mom saying the same thing
Yeah,
again and again, and it exactly like that's what I keep
yeah,
saying, "Mom, like, why are you saying this?" Like, she's, like, almost scripting, like,
yep,
repeating it,
yeah,
and telling me but I'm like, "But mom, I know this. Why are you" but boy, is that an insight I needed
yeah,
to hear.
yeah,
So that is what that narrative,
yeah,
it's your heart processing it, it's your
yes,
mind processing. Tell me what
yeah,
happens when you do that.
yeah, absolutely. So our brain is like a computer. It's the most sophisticated and amazing and miraculous computer in the universe, right? Our human brain. And it works like a computer. And this is not my concept. I first read
Okay.
about it in The Grieving Brain by Mary Frances O'Connor.
Mm,
So our brain codes people as essential. The people that are very close to us, right?
yeah.
As essential. The same as food or water or shelter, it's essential. So our brain thinks we need that to survive. And if it disappears, the computer goes, whoa, 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 whoa. What's happening? What's happening? There's a glitch. Let's rerun the program. And rerunning the program to see, hey, can we come to a different ending?
Wow.
Can we get back our essential thing? We need to rerun it. And the rerunning is going through it all over again, thinking about the day they died, thinking about everything, rerunning it over and over and over again. That's what our brain does in grief.
Wow. To solve a problem,
Yeah.
like something's missing.
Yeah.
Something
Because
is
something is missing. And our brain is like, Where did that go? And how can we get it back? Let's rerun it.
So how would I join her then? How would I join her in helping her brain? I mean, I don't want her to skip over a necessary
No.
step of healing.
Yeah.
Do I delight in that memory? Do I
Yeah.
add my memories to it?
Yes.
What does that
That's
look
it.
like?
Add your memories to it and ask her about other things. If you go to a movie with your mom, say, I wonder what dad would have thought of this. If you are driving with your mom, do you remember when dad said or did this? This is how we grieve. This is the act of grieving, is remembering, talking about it. That's how we process it. For the computer in our brain and for the heart in our chest, right? For the
Wow.
emotions that are, you don't know what to do with them. There's so many of them. So that's how we process them, is by talking about it, by crying about it.
Right.
Yeah.
And throwing out any idea of a timeline.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah.
like, kick that out the window. I have a this is a question I hesitate to ask, and so I'm gonna say this as artfully as I can and hopefully not offend you. Um, I have said as a mother, the worst thing that could ever happen to me would be the loss of a son or a daughter, a child. I'd grieve my husband, but to lose a child. You had to do both in such a short time, and I was that pain, did it look different?
You are
Like,
right. The death of a child is world shattering, life stopping. It's it is the worst thing. It is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And it was also the worst thing that ever happened to my husband, and that's why he died. And I was furious with John, furious with him. How dare you take the easy way out and leave me alone? Because he did. That's how I saw it. You got to go? Are you kidding me? And I'm
mm,
stuck here because there's other kids that I have to live for.
yeah.
And there's other people that I have to keep going for. And there's my dogs that I have to get up for every single day. And you got to go be with Adrian. I was furious with him. I was furious with him for a really long time. And the death of Adrian was so all consuming that I didn't even get to the grief over John for a couple of years. That's just, yeah, a couple of years at least. I would look at it and I'd feel anger and I'd look away. And that's okay because anger is also grief. It's the anger protects us from the things that are underneath, right? It protects us from the things that are going to hurt more. So that was really how it was. My first book is dominantly about Adrian. I do mention John in it and his death, but it's mostly about Adrian and how I learned to find healing after his loss. And my next book is going to be about John because I took me separate time and place to start looking at my grief over John.
Mhm.
Very
Yeah,
different,
and that's what you mean, like, separately, when you
separately,
had to grieve them. 2 different relationships, 2 different
completely different.
needs that it met.
Yep,
Hmm.
absolutely.
Yeah, it must have just I mean, I know you laughed at it, like, about the dog, but, like, I can imagine, like, it just must have felt too much.
Yeah, I felt like I was cursed. I felt like I was cursed and I was
Mm,
just going to keep losing pieces of my life and things that kept me centered until there was nothing left. I thought, this is my life. I've done something horrible, maybe in a past life.
mm,
I went through I'm cursed. I'm, yeah, I did not. And I think this is really important for people who are in earlier grief to hear. I didn't ever see getting better. I really didn't see that because at first, nothing will help. Truly, nothing. You are in so much pain and so much confusion, and you really feel like you will never feel better. And I felt that way too. I envisioned myself living out my life as long as I had to as this bitter, angry shell of a human
yeah,
that never experienced love or pleasure again because there was no point in loving because love just means it's going to be taken away. There's nothing to have pleasure over. I would never feel joy again. And I really saw that as my future. I really did. I didn't I didn't think it once. I thought it 1,000 times every day I got up. And, my younger son said to me, "Will you do something for me, mom?" And I said, "Yes, anything." And he said, "Don't die."
Oh,
Yeah. And so I took a Sharpie and I wrote on a sticky note, "Don't die," in capital letters, and I put it on my dresser. And every single morning, I touched it and I said, "Okay, as much as it depends on me, not today." I still have it on my dresser and I still touch it every morning. I still do. And the letters are all blurred and they're streaked. And, it's just you can barely even read what it says. But I remember when I wrote that and how full of rage and desperation and pain and how I just touched it. Okay, not today. That
yeah.
was it. No
I
commitment further than today.
I have to get a tissue.
No.
It's probably good that we're not sharing this video because I'm
Yeah.
looking very, very snotty right now.
Yeah.
Man,
But
that practical
that's who I
claiming of that.
that's who I
Yeah.
was then. I'd force myself every single day because I did not see ever getting better. And I hear that so many times from grieving people. I can't see that I'm ever gonna get better. I don't see any change. I don't think this will ever change. So, I think it's really, really important, number 1, to validate where they are. Where your mom
Mm,
probably is right now.
yeah.
Honestly, 2.5 years, that's nothing. It's nothing. It's still very early after you've lived your entire life as a "we," and now you're trying to
Mm,
figure out how to be a "me." That is 2.5 years is nothing.
right. It's a good reminder.
Yeah. So validating them where they are, and
Yeah.
also those of us who have pushed into healing, whatever that looks like, saying, "I made it and you can too."
Yeah. What was the first moment or first glimmer that you had that something could change? Because you mentioned, like, you really genuinely believe this is eternal, this pain, this grief. Was there a moment that you remember or a choice or a time?
Yeah. There was a very distinct moment. How woo-woo can I get on
As
here?
woo-woo as you want to.
So, I would create these I call them mind movies in my head over and over again, and they were wildly inaccurate. In
Mm,
one movie, I would be the helpless victim that, the universe had chosen me to curse, and there was nothing I could do to stop my son and my husband from dying. And then in the next movie, I was the horrible mother, and I
mm,
played that movie over and over and over again.
hmm,
Over and over again. Horrible mother, bad mother, worst mother, over and over and over. In that movie, my husband died to escape me. It was just like these were the things, and I would go back to them over and over and over. And then, David Kessler, I unironically
mm,
say saved my life because he did, although he says, "No, you saved your own."
mm,
He taught me that, facts. You have to keep going back to the facts, okay? Because the story changes. It changes depending on where you are, how you're feeling, who you're with, what time of day it is. That story, the mind movie I was playing, changed constantly, right? It was like, well, today I am the helpless victim. There was nothing I could have done. Maybe later this afternoon, I'm going to be the horrible mother again, over and over and over. And so he said, what is true? What doesn't change? What doesn't change? The fact that does not change regarding the story. So I could do that. I could look at it and say, okay, Adrian was 27 when he died. That doesn't change, regardless of where I am or how I'm feeling or the circumstances. Adrian was 27 when he died. He died of an accidental overdose. Like I could name the things that never
mm,
changed.
right.
And so I was sitting there thinking, okay, this is the stuff I'm going to hang on to, these facts that don't change. And it occurred to me that the other thing that never changed was that I loved him unconditionally. Whether he was high or whether he was sober or whether he was a child or a grown man, whether we were getting along, whether we were fighting, I loved him with that absolute unconditional mother love. I loved him so much. That never changed. And I was like, that's something else that will never change. And then I heard him. I heard him whisper, I love you too, mom.
Gosh.
Yeah. And I realized he loved me. I wasn't a bad mother. He didn't think so. And that was the turning point for me, realizing that my son loved me too. And it was the beginning of
Yeah.
the path that would lead to where I am now, which is understanding that love is all that matters. And it's the only thing that survives after death. Love.
Yeah.
It continues.
Wow.
It continues. Yeah.
So now you build your mind movie from those facts as your starting point?
Yeah. So my mind movies now are beautiful.
Gosh.
My mind movies now glorious. And they're
Hmm.
not just about memories. Just using Adrian as an example, they're not just memories. They were at first. I would remember happy things about him. I would think, okay, if I'm going to keep going back to the past, I don't need to keep going back to the darkest moments. I don't
Hmm.
keep going back to the days he wouldn't want me to remember. Adrian doesn't want to be remembered as an addict for the bad days, for the day he died. He wants to be remembered for the jokes, the pranks, the laughter, the
Wow.
sunshine. And so I started thinking, I need to start turning my attention towards those things, not just for myself, but for him. What
Wow.
would he want me to be concentrating on? And I knew everybody
Yeah.
knows if they really ask themselves, what does my person want me to concentrate on when I'm remembering?
Mm.
And so I started just thinking about those things and the beautiful memories. And now I know without a doubt that I'm still in connection with him, without a
Yeah.
doubt. And he is still in my life. He's still influencing me every single day. And now my mind movies are like on a whole other level of what's it
Huh.
like over there? What's
Yeah.
it like on the other side of the veil? And I
Yeah.
imagine, and maybe they're not facts, but they're beautiful. I don't know. I won't know until I die, right?
Right, right, right.
But I imagine, what is it like over there? What is it?
Mm.
And I know it's love. I know it's love. I've been shown that
Mhm.
time after time. Love is the
Yeah.
only thing they take with them. It's the only thing that still connects them to us, and it's the only thing that matters in this life. Just that love. And let me just say this too. That's why we can't really connect with them when we're in that really dark, hurting place.
Mm.
When we're in pain and anger and regret and guilt, those aren't the frequencies that they're on, right? They're love.
Mm.
They're love.
Mm.
And now those are incompatible. It took a long time before I really felt the connection of Adrian because I was in that really dark place. Guilt, 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 bad mother, bad mother,
Yeah.
bad mother. That was oil
Yeah.
and water to what he is now. But we also can't rush ourselves through it. We can't. It's a process that we have to just go through.
Mhm.
But I
Yeah.
don't know if that's, a hope.
Yeah.
I hope
Yeah.
I
Like
hope.
a craving for that
Yes.
can be there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
is there. It is there.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I love you described how the brain was introduced to you as a computer program processing
Yeah.
information and the repetition of that kind of coming up looking for an alternate answer. And then I hear you talk about what you now understand to be true. And it's like new information was added into the computer system so that the answer is fuller. It's
Yes.
not just that repetition, but now new data has been added to the data set,
Mhm.
right? Like your
That's exactly it.
understanding
Yes.
is pulling more in.
Yeah, that's
And
exactly it. Because the question the computer is asking is, "Where are they?
yes,
Where
right.
are they? Where
Yeah,
are they? Where's this essential thing that we need to survive?
yeah.
Where are they?" And so, yeah, I do think and I think our brains rewire during grief. I do
Mhm.
believe that. I
I
think
think
our
so too.
brains are rewired and we start to maybe pick up on things that we
Mhm.
didn't before that
Mhm.
maybe other people would call supernatural.
Mhm.
Um, that's how we get the answer. Here they are.
Yeah.
Here they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. I have fascination with post traumatic growth, which is such a
Mhm.
clinical term to describe what
Mm,
you experienced, but the trauma of having such profound losses, and yet the
yeah.
neuroplasticity that happens
Yes.
as you grew and healed and understood. How has that changed you?
Phew,
Like, what's different about Kim today in
everything.
terms of how
That's the truth. I mean, I'm really not, and this kind of circles back to what we were talking about what I didn't know about grief. The old you is not coming back. It's
Hmm,
not. And there is grief in that.
okay.
There is grief in that, but there's also relief. When I realized that, the old me is not coming back, and people were waiting patiently, right? They were like,
Hmm.
when's the old Kim gonna come back?" They were waiting patiently, and I was too. I kept waiting for her, and then I had this day where something shifted, and I realized, "Oh, I'm not going back. She died when they did." And like I said, there was grief in that, but there was relief because I didn't want to be her without them.
Oh, wow.
I didn't. And so I wanted to explain to the people, I really wanted to try to reassure the people that were waiting so patiently for old me to show up that I was not stuck. I wasn't giving up. I
Yeah.
wasn't broken. I was changed.
Yeah.
I didn't have the words. I didn't have the capacity either to explain to them I was changed. I was changed.
What was the old you, old Kim, that you
Mm.
had to say goodbye to? Like, who was she that you said, "She's not coming back"?
I was very focused. I was focused, career driven. I cared about things that are so unimportant to me now. I don't care. Money and possessions and cars and achievements, none of that is
Mm,
of the slightest importance to me anymore. But the biggest change is that I thought strength then was being tough, pushing through,
mm,
enduring. I built, like, walls around myself, like, I was a castle with a moat, and you cannot hurt me because I am so strong and I am defended and I have these walls. So, what I learned is that that's not true strength. True strength for me is letting those walls wash away, which they did in my grief. My grief, it destroyed all of my walls. It destroyed all of these hard shells that I had walked
mm,
around with. All of the ego led, I'm tough and you can't stop me and I show no emotion and I can just push through it. And strength now to me is softness. It's being able to cry. It's
yeah.
being authentic. It's telling people, "I love you," without worrying about rejection or any of those things. And so yin and yang,
Yeah.
that's how different I am.
When did you realize, like, I want to talk about grief? Like, I want to share what I know?
Yeah, it was during my processing where I realized I'm not gonna pretend anymore, and I'm not going to tell people that I'm okay because I'm not. And I'm not gonna act like I'm over it. And I had this really, like, clear day, and I wrote in my journal, "I'm not moving on. I'm not. I refuse to move on, and take that, world. I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm not moving on. I'm not." And the more I started saying that, the more free I felt. And that was when I really started talking about Adrian and about John just unapologetically. And I would tell people, "It's okay. We can talk about them." And I just started introducing them into conversations because moms talk about their kids. Well,
Right.
I
I have a
started
kid.
talking yeah, I started talking about Adrian again. "Oh, yeah, my oldest son, Adrian, this is what he did in that situation," or, "Oh, I remember Adrian in summer camp," and, I just started talking about him as naturally and normally as always. I brought him back into the conversation, and the same with John. I stopped being ashamed of it. I stopped being worried about how other people would take it. Um, I really just started being intentional with my grief.
I haven't read the book that you just published, but I'm really intrigued by it.
The beginning of each chapter is then. And it is
Mhm.
an actual excerpt from my journals. And I didn't change anything, I didn't soften anything, I just put it right in there. And then the second part of the chapter is now, which is how I view this now, from my perspective now, years into this and as a grief educator. So it's a little bit of then, a little bit of now, and then I finish each chapter with a letter to the people who are reading it, the brokenhearted, because I really want them to know they're not alone. I know you might be alone physically, but spiritually you're not alone. There's so many of us that are walking this path with you. So many of us, and you're not alone, and you're going to make it through this. You're not always going to feel this way. That's my goal, is to make people understand you're normal. What you're feeling right now is normal, and you won't always feel this way. I promise you won't. I promise.
Somebody's in that season of grief, like, whether it's raw and ugly or they're just at the point where they're having to decide, like, is it today a don't die day?
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
book is there to be able to share what you've learned.
Yeah. I When I was in early grief, I felt like I was constantly being thrown into the ocean and I was like doggy paddling for my life.
Mm.
Could
Your little
barely
nose sticking out
Yes.
of the water.
I could barely keep my head up. I was so exhausted. I was so tired. But myself, I could look and see on the shore, there were some people who had made it. I didn't know how, and I wasn't sure that I could do it too, but I got strength from knowing, okay, she did it. Okay, he did it. Okay, they went through this and they've made it somewhere where they're standing up. They're not doing this doggy paddle of desperation anymore. And so that's my hope now, is to be that
Did
person on the shore.
did you join, like, a grief group or
Yes.
have grief yeah, so how important was that for you?
Exceptionally important. I
Yeah.
cannot urge people enough, find your grief tribe. Find your grief tribe. David
Hmm.
Kessler, who is my mentor and my teacher, has an online group called Tender Hearts. And I swear I'm not getting paid anything to say this. This is where I first found connection and community and other people who I was like, I'm not alone. Nobody here is going to think I am broken if I just sob through the entire meeting. Nobody here is going to try to bright side me and make me feel better,
Mhm.
because there was
Right.
nothing that could make me feel better.
Yeah. Right.
So that and David's wasn't the only group, but it's a group that I still attend. I'm now I
Wow.
started out a member, one of the grievers, and now I'm actually one of his moderators. So I actually moderate his grief groups now, and I'm able to be that person on shore.
Yeah. I think
And
it's tempting for people who are in the grief to think like, "Well, nobody ever had pain like this."
right. It's how you feel.
Yeah.
You really do feel that way. This is impossible. I thought to myself, "This is not fixable." I would think that. "This is not fixable." And I was right. It wasn't fixable. It wasn't fixable. There was no solution. There was no, "This is gonna make it better." There was no
Mhm.
way to fix it. And I hated this when I heard it, but it's true. The only way to get through it is through it. You have to. You can't avoid it. You have to go through it to get through it. And so that's, I hope that I'm the person on shore saying, just swim a little bit longer. You can do it. You can do it. I promise the ground is coming. You're going to feel it under your toes, and maybe you're going to lose your balance again and be swept away, but you're going to eventually find your footing. You're going to find the footing, and then you're gonna walk forward, and it's gonna be
Yeah.
the hardest thing you've ever done, but you
Yeah.
will do it. You
Yeah.
will do it.
Are you at a place now where you feel hope and
Oh, yeah.
joy and
Yes.
happiness?
Yes.
Like, you look forward to things, you
Yes.
anticipate them with excitement?
Yes. Yes. I live to give love and receive love. That is like my mission on earth, and I am so full of joy. But if you'd asked me years ago if I would be this, I'd say no. I'd say, "No way. No way. There is no joy. Not for me. Never again." But yeah, I am so full of joy and happiness. And you used the term post traumatic growth, and it's the title of my book, evolution. This is what happens. It's natural. And it's what happens when something goes from a worse state to a better state. And that's what grief does. You have to let grief do what it does. And in the beginning, that's pain and hurt and rumination and going over things again and again and again. And it really is, it's the worst and hardest thing you'll ever do. That's grief doing what grief does, and it's normal. But there's gonna come a day, I promise people, there's gonna come a day when it changes. It doesn't go away, it changes. And so you're not living in it as much. It becomes something you carry instead of something you're trapped inside. And it changes. You're able to move forward with it, carrying it instead of it
Mhm.
being all consuming.
Crushing. Yeah. I don't know if you are a person of faith. You talk so beautifully about this awareness that you have of what
Yeah.
people bring with them, that love is this definition or
Yeah.
purpose of what it is. Would you have described yourself as a spiritual person before
Yes.
this?
Yes. Yes, I was, and I will also say I was never as angry at anyone as I was at God. I was very angry at God. And since that time, I've learned that God is much, much bigger than I perceived God to be before my losses. I was more of a structured idea, and now I realize how very big God is. And again, it comes back to God is love. God is love. And I don't think I understood that in the depth that I do now. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I was a person of faith, but I would have said lowercase faith,
Okay.
lowercase f. And now I would say all capital letters, faith.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's funny because, like, you know, feels like a bumper sticker. God is love. Yeah, like kind of pithy and lighthearted and yay. And then you put it into the context of the journey that you've been on
Yeah. Yeah.
to be like the most profound thing that you know to be true now is the love that you had for your son and the love that your son had for you, and that somehow this universe is designed around that
Yeah.
thing, all
All it
capital
is.
letters.
It's
Yeah.
all love. Yeah. It's all love. And God is
Yeah.
love. I think of that as the gold that we don't want. I have a tattoo on my arm of a dragon, and it says up at the top, face the dragon, get the gold. Because I would hear this, it's like a trope, you know. Every person has faced something horrible and it's transformed them. And
Mhm.
I hated that when I heard it. Face the dragon, get the gold. I was like, "Oh, nothing makes this worth it." I was just, it infuriated me. Like, I lose my son and my husband, but I get to like have some amazing transformation, right? But then I started realizing that it was true. I was kinder. I was softer. I was more patient. I did see more deeply into other people's hearts. So it was true. Even when I hated it, it was still happening. And I realized that it's like when you break a bone and when it heals, it's stronger than it was before.
Mhm.
We hear that, right? The place where it's broken becomes stronger. It doesn't mean you want to break your leg.
Yeah. I hate the pithy, like, toxic positivity. Like, please don't make this all tied up with a pretty bow.
Yeah.
There's no pretty here. This is
There's
brutal.
not. It is brutal. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So it's like the frothiness of how people say it that
yeah.
I despised.
I
Yeah, but the grit, like
Yes.
the when somebody has actually faced the
Mhm.
dragon and then can say, "I stand on this to be true."
Yeah. Well, and I realized that to refuse the gold would be re-breaking my leg over and over again.
Oh.
What am I gonna do? Am I gonna refuse this gold? And I realized it wasn't because of their deaths. That wasn't why I got the gold. It was from surviving their deaths. And that's a really important distinction. The changes, the evolution, the growth, the better humanity that we suddenly are interested in, that is not from the death or from the horrible thing that happened. It's not from the trauma. It's from surviving it. That is what it's from. And once we can reframe that,
Right.
it stops being
Boom.
so horrible.
Right. And that's when you talk from the scars and not the wounds. Like,
Yeah.
that's when you speak
Yeah.
from that place of, like,
Yeah.
I've done it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man. Yeah. We could talk for, like, the next year and a
I
half.
know. I know.
Come on, Kim. Tell me more. And
Yeah.
I think that's, like, I mean, the beauty of that. I mean, I haven't lost my son and I haven't lost my husband, yet what you've gained from it echoes in my soul. So,
Yeah. Well,
you
I
know,
think everybody experiences grief, whether it's the death of a person or a pet, or whether it's, I mean, you have experienced grief
yes, I have.
a
That's true. The
lot.
loss of what you hoped for, the
Yes.
loss of the life that you imagined
Yeah.
is grief. And
I call it the what could have beens. And I think it's really important to grieve those, whether it's through the death or through any other loss, like the what could have beens. I think that's really important and it's a valid
that's a
thing to grieve.
very good way to describe it. Like, what I hoped for and what I wanted isn't.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And that's worth grieving because
Yeah,
grief at its core is love. So
right. That's exactly right. Thank you. Thanks for spending your time with me today.
I had such a good time.
Your wisdom is hard earned.
Yeah.
And the gold that you share with other people has come through many, many hard and complicated years. But it's just a joy to talk to somebody else who's come through it and sees so much clarity and has processed so much through that evolution you talked about. So thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Sharon. I am so glad to have been here.
If you're walking through grief right now, I hope this conversation reminds you that you are not broken, you are not doing it wrong, that grief doesn't follow stages and it doesn't follow timelines, and it won't just disappear. But as Kim said, it can change. And maybe resilience isn't about getting over what you've lost. Maybe it's about learning how to carry that love forward, even when it hurts. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with somebody who may need to hear it. And more than anything, remember, you're not alone.